Hey everybody, CJ Maurer here, and welcome back to another episode of The Fling, the podcast without really a goal or a mission, but where we try and connect with other creators and makers and other people who are putting themselves out there to try and make positive change in some way. And so it is in that mission that I'm really pleased to introduce Akash Desai. Akash is, I think it's fair to call you a serial entrepreneur, but really just a good human, which is one of the reasons why I approached him. I got connected with Akash probably a half dozen years ago or so, somewhere around there. And what's kind of funny is that a lot of the guests, I may introduce them as so-and-so from something, right? Some company or entity that they're involved with, a charity, a business they run, something like that. But Akash is involved in so many businesses that I think we kind of got tripped up as what to introduce him from or with. So I think that makes for a lot of interesting things to discuss. Akash is a really great person. I'm excited to have this conversation. First and foremost, Akash, thank you for joining me. And how are you?
I'm doing great, CJ. Thank you so much. This is great. I love your mission statement, by the way, because that's kind of, I think you mentioned wandering, and that's exactly what, what life to me is about. So hence, no, this is Akash from XYZ.
Yeah, you're just Akash. You're a human, just like all of us, trying to figure it out, trying to do their best, whatever that means for you.
Exactly. And then doing things that really just kind of interest you in the moment. So yeah. Again, thank you for having me on the show. The pleasure is all mine.
Awesome. In the background, is that a Connect 4 table or board? What is that?
Oh, this over here?
Yeah.
I don't know what you call it, but yeah, it's Connect 4. Exactly. You're
got it.
4 in a row. And
yeah.
The reason why that happened, actually, so funny story, is after I sold my last company, I really had nowhere to work. And so I got this small office space, like just a one-room office in East Aurora where I live. And but then I had to watch the kids 2 afternoons, after school and so on. So I brought some games. They just play over there and I do my work. So
we got that for my daughter. She just turned 5, and the first time we played it, I want to say it was around a year ago. She was like 3, 4, and she loved it, but she didn't really get it, and I don't think I've played it with her since, but we still have the game. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, I should probably play that with Riley. That's cool. Akash, so there's a lot of things that I want to ask you about. I want to talk about why you're so invested in the startup community in general, but also especially here in Buffalo, and some of the things that you've learned through your experience running companies, starting companies, selling companies, and everything like that. I find that very interesting. Before we get into that, why don't you bring people up to speed on your background, right? Like, nobody was born an entrepreneur. Nobody was born with your skill set or your knowledge or your experience. So why don't you take people on a little bit of a journey on how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, I'm absolutely happy to do it. I grew up in Africa. My family, so talking about entrepreneurship, my family really was made up, so my father's side of the house was always entrepreneurial, right? So my great-grandfather, or so the story goes, was kicked out of his village in India. He was a little bit of a troublemaker, got passage on a ship, ended up in the Middle East in what is now Yemen as a cook, started his own restaurant. And then, from there, our family business really got into import export of textiles, pharmaceuticals, you name it, right? And very entrepreneurial family on the one side. My mom's side of the family was doctors and lawyers, professionals. And so today, much to her dismay, she feels like I have failed because she really wanted me to be a cardiologist. And there, I just didn't have the grades to be a nurse, let alone a cardiologist. But
that makes 2 of us.
Yeah, there you go, right? We do the best we can. But no, the way I kind of really got into what I'm doing right now is my first my first company, I started in college with a buddy of mine. This was around 2004 timeframe, and anyone that could sling some code was building websites at that time, and that was certainly us. Um, and a lot of just good fortune really is all that it boils down to. We ended up writing some software for like this tiny sliver of healthcare called institutional special needs plans. So we grew that company, sold that company in 2008. In 2009, I started an IVR company, interactive voice response, that over the next decade became more of a customer engagement as a service platform, which I sold to General Atlantic in 2019. And now I just get to, follow my next passion, which is around education technology and cybersecurity. So that's me.
So let's unpack those one at a time. I'm trying to think. What is the name? Your ed tech company. You told me about it before.
Yeah, it's called Ink Labs.
Ink Labs. That's right. Why don't you talk a little bit about that and what that's doing?
Yeah, Ink Labs is a cool company. It's so what we do is we design and we're a manufacturer of what are known as interactive flat panel displays. So these are like the newer generation of smart boards that you see in classrooms. So we sell exclusively in the K through 12 space. We also build different products like what we call this collaborative media system, which is really just it's a way to do synchronous and asynchronous learning. So as we know, because of the pandemic, students being remote, students being in person, it's been a huge drain on teachers, right? It's like, how do I teach this kind of blended environment? And I think as we go into the future, we're just going to see more of that happen, which is, you're going to have some kids that are just joining remotely, et cetera, if they're sick or what have you. So how do you provide good instruction without overloading the teachers? And so this collaborative media system allows you to do it in person and remote learning at the same time.
So it's all basically taught off some centralized platform that, regardless of whether you're in person or remote, you're seeing the same materials, following the same curriculum, everything
Exactly,
like that.
exactly. Yeah, so we're in the business. So Ink Labs is really in the business of building common sense technology that empowers teachers and allows them to do what they do best, which is teach.
Now, how do you find what's the sales process like that? Because with IVR, you went from selling directly to private companies, right?
Yeah.
Private decision makers, and now you have to go through, K to 12. You're probably selling to a lot of public schools. How have you found that selling process on the business development side to be different?
Um, in a lot of ways, it's the same. In a lot of ways, it's very different, right? So, my prior companies were, we did a lot of selling through channel partnerships. So we really allowed our partners to be successful, and they're the ones that brought us into customers like Wells Fargo and the U.S. Navy and so on. Um, with Ink Labs, it's still the same thing. So outside our local geography, which is Western New York, we sell through partners, and really, it's empowering these solution providers that are doing all sorts of things for schools and giving them another tool in their kit, right? That they can go to schools with a product. So we give our partners exclusivity in a specific geographic region. We give them great margins so they can really go build a business out of selling interactive panels in their school districts. In Western New York, we sell direct, and selling to public schools is it's a more laborious process. It's
Yeah.
certainly not as easy, and I'm learning very. I've been in this business for 11 months now, so not a long time. And it's really about building the right relationships, and you know what? It's about convincing, at a visceral level, the board, the superintendents, and the teachers themselves that what we are giving them is really enabling technology. Once they believe that, and once they really get to trust you, I think the floodgates start to open.
So you're finding that a lot of educators feel like the product you have created is aligning with their mission?
Yeah, that's been great. Yeah, absolutely. We did a large project with the Buffalo Public Schools recently. The public school, city of Tonawanda. Yeah, and these schools really, it's about what's been great is having implementing the technology and then going in a few months later and saying, hey, how is everything doing? How are we doing for you? And just seeing the teachers kind of light up is great, when they're using our technology. So yeah, it's been good.
When you're starting a company, what do you like? You've stood up a company in 11 months, right? Like that's to me that's so impressive because like you have, I mean, you have a lot of technical infrastructure, right? It's a tech company. I, you know, in an attempt in my feeble brain to try and understand things, I often relate things back to me in my situation, right? And so, I have a business that's 14 months old and it's 15 months old and it's growing and everything's fine. But the what you've done in 11 months is really impressive. And I would have to believe that part of the reason why you're seeing the success is it's not your first company, right? You probably, if somebody comes to you with an idea, right? If I were to come to you with an idea, and this is where my question's ultimately going. If I were to come to you with an idea and I said, Akash, all right, I have this idea, I have this platform, I have this product, widget, whatever. What do you think? Do you want in? Right? In your mind, you're probably thinking, I don't know if it's price points or market potential or development staff or sales. Like, what are the order of operations you go through? Like, what are the most foundational thing when somebody's got a company? Like, what do you think needs to be put? What resources and processes need to be put around it to give it some traction?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And so I do a lot of investing in the cybersecurity space. And that's the other half of my life, right? And I've invested in a guidance cybersecurity consultancy out of Boston. A security monitoring and technical implementations company out of Rochester. But to me, fundamentally, it really boils down first and foremost to it really is about the people. And you've heard that said probably, right? Which is the team a cohesive team? Like, is everyone someone that you can trust and is likable, and then are they competent? Like, do they actually know what they're talking about? And sometimes can they demonstrate that they know what they're doing, right? Because some talk is cheap, and truthfully,
Right.
you can get a lot of people that sound great but can't execute worth anything. So I think the people is the first one. And I'll give you an example of how Ink Labs happened. So, we went from pandemic, in March when we started and the pandemic hit, we just started right before that hit, to ending the year with $2 million in sales. And that's not because I knew what I was doing. I certainly did not. But I think it really was a factor of getting the right people on board. I knew I was running an inventory business that I'd never run before. I'm a software guy. So having the right financial, so my brother came in as a financial officer, and now he's president of the company and running it. He really had the operational chops to make that stuff happen and the financial chops. And then the other gentleman that helped me start the company, a guy by the name of Phil Knapp, really, really, Buffalonian. He has been in the ed tech space 20 years. He'd worked for companies like Panasonic. So, really fundamentally knew the space and was a great salesperson to boot. So I think having those right people in the right seats is everything.
Yeah, that's an old adage from Jim Collins, right? Good to Great talks about get the right people on the bus, then put the right people in the right seats, starting with people. That makes a lot of sense. So let's talk a little bit about people. One of our conversations leading up to this, you were talking about how you've been in companies where as they grew, right, maybe it was a little bit harder to maintain the culture that they had developed, right? Maybe people had been there longer, maybe feel like it's not quite the same company that it was before. You talked about how people and culture is important at the startup. what do you think in terms of what do you think about culture as in terms of something that's important to develop and maintain as a company grows and matures?
I think it's everything. Again, if businesses really are about people and, really driving people to be more resourceful and more creative, then culture is really the tool that you use to do that, right? So um, I I can kind of I felt the pain of this, CJ, like firsthand with my prior company. We acquired three other companies during the 9 years I was running it before we sold. And where I really fell down, where I really did not do a good job and learn fast enough, was really protecting the culture of the company. So what we had is, the guys that really were, employees number 1 through 7, right? Like the initial core team, we had really gelled. There was a way we did things. It was work hard, play hard. We played together. We were just friends, right? And we did our first acquisition, and that acquisition was in Florida. It was in Orlando, Florida. And we very different culture, a much older, age-wise, much older group of people compared to what we were. They already had families and kids going to college, and we were just a bunch of youngsters, right? So seeing that culture and not being able to really have like that cohesive reason for why we're here and how we're going to have fun doing it was where I failed. And going forward, that's one of the biggest things that I try to, it's a learning process for me still.
Yeah, good on you to admit that, right? One of the things that I feel proud of myself, if I may, I feel proud of myself for learning how to do is be really secure in my shortcomings, and I have no problem admitting that. So I like it. I like it when people are comfortable just to be like, yeah, I could have done this better. I need to learn from this, or I needed to learn from this. So good on you. Talk about the startup community in Buffalo. I'm having a hard time making a sense of what it is, especially with the pandemic and everything. I think I want to feel optimistic about it, right? Because whether it be 43 North or, just the general activity and the connectivity of it, right? You're seeing, I've had conversations with a lot of startups right here that, want help from marketing and things like that. So I've been fortunate enough to be introduced to a lot of them. So I've been in marketing for 13 years and I didn't see this kind of activity, 5-6 years ago, let alone 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. So to me, it's really exciting now, but I'm really on the outside, right? I'm not one of the makers of it. I'm not in tech, I'm in marketing. So what's your sense of, I don't want to just say, oh yeah, it's great, as an outside observer. What's your sense on the tech startup scene here in Buffalo and where do you think it's going?
So I'm a little bit of an outsider too, right? So I'm a maker, and I've been, incidentally involved in some of these startup communities and so on, but not really a core driving force. I'm no, for example, in Buffalo, I'm no Jack Greco, Clark Diver, like I'm not those guys, right? I just kind of have, for better or for worse, I've just kind of kept my head down and like built my own stuff. And the one, I think it's a fantastic time right now for startups, right? Structurally, if you look at it, one of the things I was really worried about is the pandemic would really kill deal flow, would kill funding and so on. But the reality is there's just so much money that our economy's awash in. Lots of money that private equity has, lots of money that VCs have, that they have to like deploy. So, there hasn't been a nosedive in funding or funding opportunities for startups. The second thing too, I think, is what I've noticed in just talking to folks, and this is reminiscent of, what we saw in 2008, 2009, and honestly 2001 when I was still in college, right? Is when things kind of blow up, and there's a small segment of people that, for them, when they're doing the cost benefit analysis of, oh, should I start my company? I don't have much to lose because I've just lost my job, or there isn't a lot of hiring going on right now, so might as well start my company. Um, I think the fundamentals are so much better for starting a company in a downturn.
Yeah.
So we're seeing good people with good ideas just saying, to hell with it, I'm just going to give it a shot, as well as money that's there, right? So that's number one. Number two, and I think when we talk about startups too, and you mentioned it, you said, what's the state of startups, and then you said, I'm not a startup guy. I think that's inaccurate to say. Like, that's one of the things I think very differently about, right? Like, I think tech startups are great, high growth SaaS companies are great, but going the route of getting venture capital and growing fast and growing big, I think that's one way of doing startups for sure, but it's not the only way, right? What you're doing, CJ, I'm a big fan of small businesses, sustainable businesses, debt-free businesses that are, maybe not as great stories, but a lot of those create like the sustainability,
Yeah.
our city needs.
No, you're absolutely right. While you were mentioning that, I just quickly looked up businesses that started in the Great Recession of like 2007, 8, 9. Because I remember reading about this. So you got WhatsApp, Venmo, Groupon, Instagram, Pinterest, Slack. Everybody loves Slack. Square. There's just it's really impressive. And in a couple of years, we're going to be reading about not that I'm rooting for a recession, right? But it's absolutely unsurprising to, a couple of years we'll be reading about, the companies that were started right now in the pandemic, right? You hear about pandemic babies. Well, yeah, this is a different type of pandemic baby. So,
indeed. And it's funny, but like, to me, it's been interesting because my first company that I started, right, while still in college, was when I was still in college with one of my friends. So this was 2001, 2002, 2003, before graduating. And same story, right? It was right after things had gone to hell in a handbasket. And then my second company.
That was the tech bubble, like 01, 02. Yeah.
01, 02. My second company was 09, when we were in another recession.
And
so I understand it fundamentally. And the reason is because, too, the other thing that happens is the buyers, people that, in a recession, and the pandemic's a great example, right? Suddenly, oh, we would never do this, suddenly becomes, oh yeah, suddenly everyone is open to looking at different ways of doing stuff. So it's
yeah, they say I love this phrase: adversity is the mother of innovation, right? Like when your house is on fire, you jump through the window because that's what you know what I mean? You do, when your back's up against the wall, you do what needs to be done. And another point I like is, and Seth Godin used to talk about this. I'm kind of like a Seth Godin disciple.
Awesome.
He talks about how he talks about the security of a job, right? Mm-hmm. And how now in a world where anybody with a computer and an internet connection can, in theory, have access to anyone else in the world. The markets are open to anybody, and the barriers to entry of starting anything are significantly lowered, right? Just talking a basic, let's say you have a services business, you're a dog walker or a marketer or anything out, or an accountant, right? You can, how easy is it to get like a name, a DBA, a website, and just put stuff out there, right? And if you can solve problems and add value through your content, through your exchanges, then there is every reason for you to find work. And so what he was arguing is that entrepreneurship is the new safe route, right? It's like it's safer than having a job. It is more secure than having a job because you're at the mercy of somebody else. And, quite honestly, before I feel that way now. Now, I didn't always necessarily feel that way. And in the past, to be honest, like I wasn't somebody who, I just, I couldn't have a job. I can't have somebody to tell me what to do. I have to be my own boss. I didn't really have that. I was very happy working at, the previous stops that I've had, but I always just kind of had this bug. And now that I'm kind of on the other side of it, I think like, yeah, there's times where it's really hard and there's times where you really feel the weight of the responsibility. But like, I think I feel safer here than if I was working for somebody else and constantly worrying like, man,
Yeah.
are they gonna wake up one day and feel like I'm not the person for the job anymore, or that I'm not doing it, or is something else going to happen completely unrelated to me, and sorry, they can't afford me anymore, something like that.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And when you're an employee, I feel like you are a business with one customer. And that customer also dictates that you cannot work for anyone else. Sounds terrible, terrible. I mean, we would never do that in business. So I
Right.
completely agree with you. And I know a lot of folks that they're, what's a good way of putting it? Micro contracting almost.
Mhm.
They do a lot of small jobs, and make a great living doing it.
Yeah.
You know what? They lose a few customers, they gain a few customers, but it all nets out.
Right, right. Yeah. I mean, and I think you're seeing that more and more because in my world, right, so many more agencies are hiring freelancers. I just hired one, right? I hired, a project manager and, she's doing great so far. And one, it gives us each a little bit of flexibility to make sure it's like a right fit,
Yep.
that, I like her, she likes me, because we're both, like, quite frankly, we're both on a trial membership. Because when I talk about that in terms of, being an employee and wanting to sometimes feeling limited, it makes me think about one day where I start hiring more employees, and what kind of employer am I going to be? Am I going to be one that makes them feel unsafe or restricted, or I'm going to make them feel free and valued and that they want to be there? So that's a tremendous burden that I
Yep.
face.
Yep.
And I actually want to get your opinion on that in a second, but to your point, like it's not just project management, it's copywriters and designers and developers and video people. Like if you're really good, there's a lot of people who say, what, I don't want to work for in-house at a company or for an agency. I'm just going to hang my own shingle. And when you do good enough work and you do it for a long enough period of time, or a lot of people in the community know you could get work. You know what I mean? So it's going to be even harder to hire full-time W-2 employees at the top level, because most of those people are dictating their own terms and
Right.
in a freelance environment. So I think businesses got to be really prepared to engage with more independent contractors as opposed to employees, and maybe that's not a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad thing, except I think there's a few things that our society needs to do. The way I think about it, CJ, which is I think protections for people that are, hanging their own shingle, are actually pretty low, right? Like you don't get all the employer benefits, the protections of, like, if you lose a job, you can, you get compensation, right? Unemployment.
You're talking about if you're a W-2 employee and you lose your
Right.
job, you get unemployment insurance.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And I don't know all the specifics, but what I do know is the two reasons why people are like deathly afraid of going out on their own are A, the lack of a good social safety net, right? Health insurance, the basics. And then number two is, well, I mean, that's really the big one, right? And
That is
so,
the big one, and I'm with you on that.
right. And number two is really the fact that now labor is just so much more diffuse. You can be in direct competition as an accountant, as a marketer with someone in the Philippines or someone
Yep.
in India and so on. So it's not a path of roses, certainly, but I think we as a society could go a long way in building the kind of the 21st century social safety nets that allow people to be more creative. Like kind of like I think of it as Star Trek. Like I love Star Trek because these guys, they never had a purpose, is the way I felt it, right? Like they would always be flying around or from one planet to another doing stuff, and it was all about exploration. Like how cool would it be if in an industrialized country like ours, where we are so wealthy per capita, to be able to really have the ability to go explore, because you know that there is a safety net that's gonna take care of you should something adverse happen.
I agree. I agree completely. I think, not to get too political, but I don't mind sharing this. I think take for instance the issue of healthcare and Medicare for all or universal healthcare. I think that's an issue of freedom, to be honest. And I think I'm getting the sense that maybe you would agree. I don't know what your political bent is, but regardless of what side the political aisle you're on, what you just said really struck a chord with me, because I think that if your healthcare is tied to your employer, right, then that is very restrictive, right? Now you have to, you're limited in the decisions that you can make to explore, earn a living, do things that are good for you, for your family, for society. And I would really like to see that burden lifted, because honestly, I think that, aside from being a healthier society that would pay dividends, I really do believe that there would be more exploration and innovation and things that would have tremendous benefits, because ultimately it is an issue of freedom, to me, is how I kind of interpret it.
Yeah, it really is. And I certainly am not a policy wonk.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm not an economist, so I don't really know what the right answer is. But just from my experiences, my brother-in-law, as an example, he's one of the most creative guys that I know. He's one of those guys that will pick up a book and then build his own, what do you call those? Like, not convection, wood-fired pizzas. What's that?
Oh yeah.
Okay. I don't know what they're called, but he'll just go and build all these crazy things, right? And if I just kind of wonder if he really didn't have to worry about his job and relegate his creativity to like 2 hours a night or 1 hour a night that he has time to do it, what he could do.
Yeah. That's a perfect example. And you're seeing more of that too. Now, the one thing is that the current landscape, technology, infrastructure, whatever you want to call it, is enabling that. Because what's happening? People are dipping their toe in, right? Yeah. They're creating something and they're sharing it on Instagram or on a YouTube channel, and people like it, and organically it builds a following. And now, if you have a following, if you have like 1,000 raving fans, you can make a living on that. And sell them a course, apparel, some type of Patreon subscription to your content or whatever, individual consulting, high-end custom jobs. Like, regardless of what industry you're in, if you have an audience, you can monetize it, maybe enough to make a living full time. So I think like just the tools, but really what the tools represent, the connectivity is thrusting us further in that direction. And I think that's exciting. So, but I do hope that somebody who's as talented as it was your brother-in-law, you said?
Yeah.
Has the opportunity to explore that more. Speaking of delicious things made in ovens, I don't know if we've talked about this, but I'm sure you weren't talking about a tandoori oven. Because obviously you would know what that is. I don't know if I told you, but my first job ever, when I was 15 years old, I was a busboy at an Indian restaurant, and they let me try everything on the menu.
Yeah.
Indian food still to this day is, ask anybody who knows me, is my absolute favorite food. I don't just eat chicken tikka masala, although I do love that. And I probably order that every third time. I probably just get that. Yeah. But I absolutely love it. I go to any time an Indian restaurant opens up. I go there. I make it at home all the time. Lately, I've been really into vegetable korma, making that. So anyways, I love Indian food. So I need to know, like, when it comes to Indian food, are you spoiled? Like from your family's cooking or anything like that? Do you go to an Indian restaurant and you're like, yeah, this is whatever, or right. Tell me if I'm missing out.
I am spoiled. So and I think there's a lot of great Indian restaurants here, right? I don't know, and I don't really go to any Indian restaurants. I think I feel like I really should. Maybe you can tell me what the good ones are. But no, my mom is a great cook. My wife is a great cook, and and she really picked up all the Indian cooking. I'm kind of getting into cooking now. The pandemic's really changed a whole lot, you know, uh, along those
By
lines.
the way, I have a really good. I started making homemade naan just in a pan because obviously I'm not going to stick it to the side. I don't have a clay oven, but it's not bad. And you can make it in 15 minutes, and it's way better than the pre-made stuff you get at Wegmans
I didn't
or
realize you had these kind of skills. That's awesome.
well, I love to cook.
Oh,
So I mean,
um,
if I'm just home and I got no plans for a weekend, like on a Saturday, like
you're going,
Thursday or Friday, I'm like, okay, what can I make that would be fun? Go buy some ingredients, and then Saturday, maybe go to the gym, come home, make
yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
drink beer and wine with it.
Well, Indian food is great, but I have to say my favorite, my friend is Leo. My best friend is Laotian. So
Mhm.
I have really gotten into Vietnamese and Lao cooking. Man, it's just
That little peninsula with like Cambodia and Laos and Vietnamese.
exactly,
I don't know
exactly.
it super well. I've definitely had Cambodian and Vietnamese food, but I can't speak to it the way I could. Like I don't really understand all of the dynamics of it the way I could. Like definitely Indian, maybe Thai, definitely Italian. My maternal grandparents were born in Italy,
Okay.
and so they met in New York City, which is where both of my families from. I grew up in Connecticut, so both my parents, like all my family, just descends from New York City. So my grandmother, I'm kind of similar with Italian food. Like I love Italian food, and
Yep.
there's so many great Italian restaurants. And I feel cliche saying this, but like you will not beat my grandmother's cooking.
Cooking.
You just
Yeah.
won't. You
Right.
won't.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot to be said for homemade cooking.
Yeah.
Um, but you ever been to West Side Bazaar, CJ?
Yes. Well, isn't there an Ethiopian restaurant there?
Yeah, Ethiopian restaurant. Yeah, great Ethiopian place. Yeah, that Ethiopian food. I mean, there you go. I grew up in Ethiopia, so
Oh,
big, yeah, big fan of Ethiopian food. But yeah, West Side Bazaar has like a Laotian place and like so yeah, great place to try it out.
I honestly I haven't been there in a couple of years.
Oh,
Um,
yeah,
I've kind of been bogged down with three kids and a business. So it's not just there. I haven't been a lot of anywhere recently, to be honest. But that's a good point. I'll add it to my list. I'm really proud because my wife, when I first met her, she did not have a very diverse palate. She ate kind of like basic foods,
is your
but
wife also
she
watching this?
yeah, I know, right? She's wonderful. But no, she loves Indian food now. Not as much as me,
Yep.
but it's like it is literally. I'm living in a dream scenario when I can be like, where usually like if we order food, it's usually on a Friday night, right? We usually like order in on Friday nights, and
Yeah,
so just last week I was like, hey, how about Indian? She's like, yeah, okay, cool.
yeah.
And to me, that's a dream because there's a lot of people who I did like, or even they've never even had it, but they don't want to try it. I don't know what if they're afraid that there's too spicy or what. But to me, it's impossible that somebody could not like it. If they don't like it, that just means they haven't tried it.
One of my greatest accomplishments in life. You're talking about your wife. So my wife is a farmer's girl. She grew up in Angelica, New York. Middle of nowhere, take a left kind of places.
Sorry, quickly, where is Angelica?
Literally middle of nowhere. So it's in Allegheny County. It's about
Okay,
an hour, maybe hour and 50 minutes south of here.
is that near like Cuba?
Yeah, 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 exactly. Near, yeah, that area.
Okay, got
Uh,
it.
yeah, but she after we started dating, and she was also vegetarian. And my greatest accomplishment in life is not only did I get her to love, Asian food and spicy food and so on, but I also made her start eating meat. So
Wow, nice.
I
So
know.
so you get that really comes together with like Asian food and meat, Korean barbecue. That's That's
Yeah,
the stuff. That's the
yeah.
stuff. Yeah. So I don't know if you know Neil Carroll. He runs a video production, marketing, and production agency called Vidwheel, and so he's a friend of mine. And he actually came on in one of my early episodes, and what was cool is that I bought my like whole like webcam setup through him, and he consulted with me, and he's been doing that. He's kind of transitioned his business model in a lot of ways to help people who are just making remote video, whether it just be videos for their website or starting their own podcast. So he's got this whole what's called a creator network. So it's just awesome that he has a platform where everybody has group discussions, and he brings a guest speaker every week, and then he also sells the hardware and consults on that, and like he'll do post production. So to be honest, I send every episode to him, and he does post production, puts little graphics on it, cuts the clip for social. So it's really cool, by the way. So if you or any of your companies are interested in like a lower friction way of making your own content and still making it good, consider him. But
so 100%, I think that would be, yeah, I'll get his name after.
Yeah, I can put you in touch. So he and I talk about how like all our favorite food is just in the Eastern Hemisphere, because we'll meet up. His place is right in Allentown. So there's a newer place called Buffalo Tikka House on Allen and North Pearl. That place is really good, really small. No frills place, really good. Their sauces are more rich and creamy than average, which I think is maybe a little bit more Americanized, but really, really delicious. Really good ingredients. Really like that place. So, but yeah, so Korean, Thai, Indian, sushi. Sushi is the thing that I could eat every day. I can't have Indian food every day because I eat too much of it. It's too many carbs. Right. I just can't have it every day. Sushi, though, I could literally eat every day.
Every day. Yeah, sushi is phenomenal. And it's always sushi with some of their hot sakes I mean, that's perfect. But then, don't plan on, I usually do that for lunches.
Yes.
Once in a while with my wife, we'll go out, have sushi. But then I kind of have to take the afternoon off because, you just never realize how much sake you're drinking until you're like, crap. Okay, I'll just.
It sneaks up on you. It doesn't even feel like you're drinking anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't had it in a while. So how long have you been in East Aurora?
I moved here in 2006. And then after a couple of years, bought a house in North Buffalo, was up there for a couple of years. And then we had, my daughter, when we were pregnant with my daughter, we decided we just wanted to move closer back to family, so we moved back to EA. So it's a great little town, it's. Do
you live in the village or close to it?
100%. Yeah, my wife, so we've moved houses in East Aurora two times now, and the only thing my wife will say is I have to be able to open the door, and when I step out, it should have an East Aurora sidewalk. So
nice.
That's the limits.
That's awesome. I respect that. I love villages. I live in the city. I live in South Buffalo, and it's a good neighborhood. It doesn't have like the flair of like a Village of East Aurora or something like that. But I've been here for
whereabouts.
So right by like Cazenovia Park and Mercy Hospital and Doc Sullivan's. There's always, you can't talk about South Buffalo and not mention a proximity to a specific Irish pub. So
yeah, they're all over, right?
Yeah,
but, that Cazenovia Park is nice.
Oh, it's great. It's great. There's little hills there. I take my kids sledding. Just took them there last weekend. They do a great farmers market, which started about 4 or 5 years ago every Sunday. So we walk there for that playground, go running through it. It's really nice. So we really like the area, but we are thinking about moving in the not too distant future. My wife loves East Aurora. I do too. But when I think about it, I would love to be in like a place like Village of East Aurora or Village of Hamburg. I like the villages. It's really nice.
Yeah, and the nice thing is like there's just a nice knit community here too.
Yeah.
Like village feel and stuff.
The things that they do, like that has so many East Aurora, I feel like has a really strong sense of place. Right, with the Christmas stuff they do, the Carolcade, it's really, really, it's really nice. Honestly, it's really nice.
Well, if you're ever looking for places, I know a really good realtor.
Oh, dude, is that your wife or you?
No.
You just happen to know.
That helps us. Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, I'll keep that in mind. We may,
Yeah.
you know, we may be moving. Not really sure when, but
Yeah. That's awesome.
yeah. So the one thing is like my wife is from, well, she's from South Buffalo too. So
Oh, yeah.
so she's always gravitated to the South towns. So
Yeah.
West Seneca. So in her mind, like she's got to live there, which is, I mean, it's right out of the Western New York playbook. If you're from the North towns, you stay there. From the South towns, you stay there. Me, right, moving here from Connecticut,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I've lived most of my, well, actually, shoot, I've been in this house for 7 years. So I guess now half my time in South Buffalo, the other half I pretty much lived in Elmwood Village. So, you know, not never really an allegiance. I've only ever lived inside the city of Buffalo. So it's going to be a big step if we end up moving to the suburbs. But I'm fine. I'm fine looking at the North towns too. You know,
Yeah.
I think the South towns are great, but I also like the North towns, so I don't really
Right,
care.
right. Well, and it's interesting, but you being in the city and having kind of, lived there most of the time. I mean, the city's wonderful. And
Yeah,
a lot of people, like my brother's lived in the city, and he will never move anywhere else. He just, I just love the feel and the vibe, and
I gave up that fight in my mind probably a year or two ago.
right,
I always wanted. I would always say. I would tell Lindsay. I would said, you know, I want to raise kids in the city. I always want to stay in the city and things like that. And she was like, yeah, I think maybe we'll want to move to the suburbs someday. And not like, wasn't really like an argument, but I could tell it was something where we weren't always 100% aligned, but she kind of like, she didn't fight me on it. And I think like in her mind, she had a feeling I would eventually come around to going to the suburbs. And at this point, we got three little kids. It would definitely be nice to have a little bit more space
right.
and you know, some other things with like the school districts and stuff. So
Yeah, Ecuador is
she
pretty.
just patiently waited me out as
Yeah,
you probably predicted, and now here I am.
yep, yep. Like get the three kids, and it's all gonna happen. It's automatic.
Yeah. By the way, I remember you telling me about the school that your kids go to. Do they still go to this really cool like private school in East Aurora?
Yeah, it's a really tiny school. It's literally, CJ, one step up from homeschooling. There's 24 kids. It's called Mandela.
That's
Uh,
right. That's
yeah,
right.
and
Talk
yeah,
about that. Tell me about that school. I think that's really interesting.
yeah. So the way we kind of got into it, like and it's literally like on the same block as our house. So it's like you just
Oh
like
my gosh.
cool. You're like whatever, we'll see it because I can just look out the door and watch them going to their school. Um, but the reason why we got acquainted with it was so my son in his younger years when first grade, second grade, right? He's just finishing up third now, but he was one of those kids that he was really behind schedule in reading and really ahead of schedule in math. And so the school really wasn't, it just wasn't working for him.
He was he was not being served. His interests weren't being served for either.
Yeah, because he just needed much more personalized, schooling. And so we tried out Mandela with him, and he's just really taken off. It's great. But then my daughter, she went to the middle school, and East Aurora Middle School, elementary school. I mean, just really great schools, right? But after with the pandemic, we're like, well, it's just going to be a little bit of a disaster. We might as well put her here, and she's just loved it. And what we love about it is, I mean, 24 kids, 4 teachers. It's phenomenal, and they get to go at their own pace for different things, and they're the things they read, the math they do. It's just they explore, and that's been wonderful.
It's great. That is
As
so
we go,
fantastic.
yeah.
So I have
How old are your kids?
five. So my
Oh,
oldest Riley, she'll be in kindergarten in the fall. Luke he'll be 3 next month, and
oh yeah.
Ellie's 5 months old. So
Oh wow, wow, wow.
yeah. So Riley goes to school at Notre Dame Academy in South Buffalo in pre-K 4.
Yep.
Luke is actually deaf, and he goes to Buffalo Hearing and Speech. He has cochlear implants, so he's in the oral deaf program. So he's in a school with a bunch of kids that all have either cochlear implants or or hearing aids.
Yeah.
And the stuff that, I mean, you want to talk about something that's incredible. It's like what these teachers are doing with these kids to develop speech, you know.
Yeah.
It's really incredible how much, I mean, the human ears are pretty great. I mean, it's great that he can hear, right? But, you know, we take for granted like how amazing the input to our brains are from our human ears. So there's a lot of things that you kind of got to deconstruct it and build it up. Their hearing and their comprehension and their language, and they're doing an amazing job with him. And so,
is that like an ongoing kind of program, or?
Yeah, it takes them to kindergarten. It takes them to kindergarten, and it's my understanding that most of the kids just go to mainstream schools starting in kindergarten.
Gotcha. So after that, they're kind of caught up, is what you're
Yeah, so they all have speech delay. I mean, Luke. I mean, he's almost 3 and he's not talking, right?
Yeah.
But
one of my friend's daughters, same issue, but I think she kind of, I guess she adjusted and grew out of it over time.
Yeah, that could happen too. He's not going to grow out of his hearing loss. So, you know, for him, it's really just a matter of getting used to hearing through these cochlear implants, and then, you know, developing normal speech, which is a process. But, you know, we're really proud of him. We're really proud of these teachers. So, so yeah, we're not quite like school age yet, but we're getting there. We're going to be there, you know, pretty soon. So, you know, that's always something that we take into consideration if and when we move and things like that. So,
is Notre Dame, you said Notre Dame Academy?
Yeah.
Is that a Catholic school?
It's a Catholic school. Yeah. So it's really close by, and, you know, we know a lot of people there, and it just felt like and she loves it. Honestly, she loves it. So
that's really cool. Is now, and your wife's family is all in South Buffalo, and so you got parents and
her dad moved like south.
Yeah.
And by south, I mean like, well, he was in Hamburg for a while, and now he's kind of in like the Springville area. But her dad's one of 6, and all of his siblings are still in South Buffalo in a 1.5 mile radius. So I love it.
That's amazing.
It's great. I mean, cousins and family, like, we just go everywhere and we see people. You know, I have an open door policy in our house. Like, I tell people, come by. Like, you don't need an invitation. You want to, you're around, you're running errands, come by, say hi. So like her brothers, some of her cousins will just pop in and see the kids for a little bit. And I love that. Like, that's always what I wanted. We have babysitters, so it's a good situation.
Yep. I believe it. That's got to be so huge. Now, is your wife Italian too, or?
No, she's German and Irish. And she's like a mix of a lot of things: German, Irish, English, Native American, things like that. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I've noticed is, you know, my friends that are, you know, like second generation Italian and so on. I mean, their family bonds are just so tight. I mean, they're always at each other's houses.
Yep.
You don't see that too often.
No, you don't. I'm kind of, you know, I'm only half Italian, so I have a German last name, and I'm Irish too. I'm half Italian and then German and Irish. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, like, my Italian side of the family, my dad jokes about this all the time. He used to work for a company called IBM, and, well, everybody knows IBM. What I meant to say is they had a shirt that said IBM Italian by marriage, and he like had the experience of being like caught in the vortex of that really close-knit family. But it's great, you know, it's great.
Yeah. That is great. You know, that's the one thing that, you know, so Indian families are like that too, you know, we're super tight and stuff. But yeah, that's been kind of weird because, you know, right now my brother's lives in the city of Buffalo, but, you know, we're in the South Towns, and that's all the family we've got. So it's, you know, it feels like, oh man, I wish we were back home. You know, when we go to India, it's, you know, just parties all the time.
That's awesome. India is on my bucket list. I have to go. I watch all the Gordon Ramsay episodes when he goes there and cooks there, and, you know, I YouTube Indian cooking all the time.
You're gonna have to cook some Indian food for me.
That's a lot of pressure. I mean, I would do it for sure. Do you know what
do a much better job than me. So, but so I was gonna like with the pandemic and everything. I've really like taken to like learning how to cook because I was a disaster before that. I'm like, okay, I can cook myself some eggs, and then I can call for pizza. But over the last year, it's been fun to pick it up and stuff. So now, I
It's
love it.
great.
I love it. I'm no good, but I love it.
Cooking is the best. One of the things I'm really proud of my family for. So we come from I come from a mixed family, right? So unfortunately, my mom passed away when I was 3, and it was my brother and I. And then my dad got remarried, so I had 2 stepsisters. And then together they had my youngest sister, Claire. So we have a very big and mixed family. And my brother, fortunately, is up here, and my sisters are in DC and Richmond, Virginia now. She was in DC for like 10
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
And then New Hampshire. But anyways, all of us can cook. All of us are like I wouldn't say I'm really good. Like some of us are better than others. But we're all like very capable cooks, and I don't know why, but I always take a lot of pride in that. We can throw down in the kitchen. It's just because we love it, you know.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah. It's a lot of fun, and with the pandemic and not having anywhere to go or whatever, it's a
I
great way to
know.
spend the time.
It's
Yeah.
really healthy, and my daughter likes to do it now too. I mean, she likes to help a little bit,
Yeah.
crack eggs, mix. It's really fun because it's a great input output, right? Because sometimes I do things and she wants to help, and
Yeah.
it's not really a kid task, right? It's not really something that she can do. But this is something, whether it's rolling pizza dough or stirring a soup or something like that, or even just helping measure and add ingredients. Like she can instantly see the reward, and I love working with my hands and things like that. It's just so therapeutic, and it's great. It's so healthy.
Yeah, yeah, healthy. Exactly. You got that right.
Yeah.
It's I had man, and pandemic's been great in a lot of ways for me. Like I just had like this, I was just getting like just my body was not in a good place before the pandemic. Just too much beer, too much food out. You're always kind of out doing something. Now it's like you just get to relax. Just I'm eating healthy. The family's eating healthy. So there's definitely silver lining to it all, right?
I mean, agreed. I'm still not going to the gym as much as I need to be, but I'm definitely eating healthier, and I'm sleeping
Yeah,
better now.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm definitely good in that respect. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of good that comes out of this. Like if you're fortunate enough to where you weren't like significant, like if your health is intact, you and your family, because I know a lot of people who that's not the case, and it's a
yeah.
terrible feeling to have to
No,
witness.
absolutely.
Um, and your job wasn't impacted significantly,
Yeah.
then there really are a lot of positives. Now,
Yeah.
I'm right. Put me right in line with the people who want this to be over and want to go do things again. Absolutely, but I'd be lying if I didn't like honestly say that there was good. It forced us to slow down. I mean, I created this
Yeah.
right just because I realized I'm like, when is the world ever going to slow down and give me a better opportunity to just do something that I always wanted to try? So I started a podcast and a
Yeah.
garden last spring. That's what I did. And
That's
so
awesome.
that was another good thing too. I grew my own vegetables. I'm growing my own
Nice.
vegetables.
Nice.
Yeah. I
Like
built a little,
everything.
yeah, it's 4 feet wide by 11 or 12 feet long. And I
Whoa.
just built it. Yeah, it's like I built
That's
it pretty tall, like 3 feet high. I spent a full day
my God.
building it,
A
and
lot to go to
it's
yourself.
great.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we had a small raised bed, and just the amount of vegetables we were getting was insane. I think yours is at least double mine.
It's great. We did successfully. We did tomatoes, peppers, um, uh, lettuce, and squash,
Yep.
and unsuccessfully, I did carrots and onions and green beans.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't do a lot of research. I could have it probably used it. It was my first time ever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, my insurance agent and friend, shout out to Jeff Lionmark. He lives in Hamburg. He has a degree in horticulture from Cornell. So like, I mean, he came over to my house once and was like, all right, this is what you want to do. Sunlight here, boom, boom, boom. Told me exactly how to plant things. So, you know, unfortunately, you know, he didn't actually go ahead and plant it and water it for me. But, you know, now I'm getting ready. It's like almost that time, you know, probably the next month or so, I'm going to start doing some research, figure out, okay, what do we want to plant, things like that. But it was awesome.
That's great, man. Well, see, that's the joy of being married to a farmer's daughter. My wife kind of, I just do
Oh,
what she tells me to do, you know. So yeah, no, but we got chickens. We now have our own eggs, and yeah,
that's
it's
wonderful.
kinda cool. It's like homesteading.
That is great. I think more people are doing that and talk about healthy habits. That's really great.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty cool, you
That's
know.
great.
Yeah, so
Well, listen, Akash, I mean, I really enjoyed this. You know, we're recording this. We're just running up on 5 o'clock Eastern time. So I'm sure we both got to, you know, close up, have some dinner, spend some time with our families. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this. This has been so much fun. And I want
same
to
here.
thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no, and this has been great, and it's always great to connect with someone that you haven't talked to in a long time.
I
So thank,
know. I
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Let's not let as much time pass.
Amen, brother.
All
Amen.
right. Have a
Oh,
great day, Akash.
you
All
too.
right.
Have
Talk
a
soon.
good day. Cheers,
Bye.
TJ.